Namaskar. Madhu Kishwar. These two words remind you of so many things. A brave woman who's been an inspiration to a number of women across India. A journalist who's been fearless. A researcher who's put forth such research as is going to benefit the country for years to come out here. Someone who's been confident about herself and sure in her skin. Who started Manushi that gave up publications, that came up with articles that changed the life and legislation of this country in ways that we cannot actually start enumerating. It's my proud privilege to be here today in a conversation with the celebrated Madhu Kishwar. Together, I have with me my friends Nupur J. Sharma and Dr. Yogini Deshpande. We will have a free-reading chat and get to know what is it that drove Madhuji to where she is and what is the way forward that she looks for her life now. This is a conversation which now will be taken over by Yogini.
Namaste Madhu Didi. Let's start at the very beginning where can you tell us a little bit about your early childhood, which schools you attended, which was the first college that you attended?
I was born to very middle class parents in Delhi, and my parents, their families had come as refugees from Pakistan, my father from Lahore, my mother from Peshawar, and we also had, my maternal family also had roots in Kashmir. So it was an uprooted two families, and they met in Delhi and got married. But I think the most exceptional thing about my childhood was the enormous love, respect and unconditional freedom that my parents gave me from very early on. And I can say it with confidence that the kind of freedom I had at age 5, no man anywhere in the world, even at age 55, would have. So this business of oppressed womanhood or girlhood, I never experienced. If anything, my brothers would often say, if she can do it, why can't we? You know, I never had to say, लड़के ये कर सकते हैं तो मैं क्यों नहीं कर सकती. They gave me total freedom, and my father in particular treated me as though I was some divine creature that had fallen into his lap. My given name by my mother was Purnima. At 2.5, when I was taken for admission to school, this was Cambridge School, and I was being interviewed by this fat British lady and asking me questions which apparently I did very well at. And at some point she asked me my name. I have no idea where it came from, but I said Madhu. Now my Masi is sitting next to me. She looks at me, but she didn't challenge. She didn't say, Naini, iska naam to Purnima hai. And that's how I became Madhu Kishwar. And it's only after my mother died, and I was completely heartbroken. I still haven't recovered, though she died in 2001. And I really wanted to connect with her. The loss was just too much. And I thought and thought, how could I have been the daughter that my mother wanted? You know, Purnima is Thandak. And Madhu, naam to maine de diya, hona to chahiye tha, Karela neem chada. That's when I decided to add Purnima to my name, and I became Madhu Purnima, to try and understand what kind of daughter my mother had envisaged. Though mind you, she celebrated whatever I did, and my parents allowed me even to make mistakes and blunders without ever saying we told you so or showing disapproval in any way. Amazing parents, and I really believe कि 7 जन्मों के कुछ अच्छे कर्म थे जो ऐसे माँ बाप मिले, इतना सपोर्टिव एनवायरनमेंट मिला, और इसीलिए that's one reason why I can never be bitter against our society, because this society, my parents, my relatives, my nani, nana, mosi, mosas, all of them unconditionally accepted whatever choices I made in life, and I made very unusual choices. And my mother, you know, actually I was much closer to my mother because वो मेरा सर चढ़ने नहीं देती थी. My father would have pampered me into becoming the most spoiled creature on earth. My mother too pampered me enormously, pampered me more than any son would be, but she kept me very down to earth, and I really like that very much, that she never let me get a swollen head simply because I was a high performing student. I used to top in everything as a school child. My schooling started with Cambridge School, went on for 2-3 years Lady Irwin School in Delhi. Then my father had been transferred to Punjab, so I studied in St. Joseph's Convent there for some years. Then he was transferred back to Delhi and I joined Miranda House. After Miranda House, I went to where else but Jawaharlal Nehru University.
So you talked about attending Miranda House before going to JNU. I believe I've read somewhere that there's the story of where Miranda House in the 70s used to have a beauty pageant for the best incoming student or outgoing student or something like that. And you fought against the holding of the beauty pageant and made a stop to it. Can you recollect your memories of that event and how you went about ensuring that Miranda House would no longer have the beauty pageant contest?
See, a lot of things happened in Miranda House. It certainly was, it brought about major dramatic changes in my life, and it has made a very important contribution. When I entered Miranda House as a 16-year-old, I was really very starry-eyed about entering what I thought was the highest portal of learning for women in those days. When I enter there, what do I find? One of the first things that the freshers are introduced to is the Miss Miranda beauty pageant and fashion parade. I couldn't make sense of it. हम तो पढ़ने लिखने आए हैं, beauty pageant का यहाँ क्या काम हो रहा है? The other thing that struck me and really hit me very hard, even though I made the mistake of joining English honors, but I was always very desi in my sensibility, in my sanskars, in my way of thinking. And in Miranda House, the gap between the English-speaking hip elite and the Hindi-speaking benches was so large, as though they were two different species. And if somebody like me, who would often sing Bollywood songs in the bathroom, or I had a copy of Ramcharitmanas, I remember, in my hostel room, and I was viewed by some of my very fancy peers as some kind of a relic from medieval past. What was she doing in Miranda House? I mean, if they saw Milton Paradise Lost, that's okay. But Ramcharitmanas, तुम क्या कर रही हो इसके साथ? वो भी English honors. So these divides really bothered me a lot, because decision making was concentrated in the hands of the English-speaking elite that came from CJM and Vellums and all these very elite public schools. So they are the ones who ran and decided what Miranda House should be like. So also teachers.
Who were your contemporaries at that point of time?
वो भी बताती हूँ. It's funny. Many of the current day hi-fi feminists were my contemporaries, and at that time they were in favor of the beauty contest. So how did I go about mobilizing support? Firstly, I went from class to class to the pass course Bhenjis, to the science types who nobody ever talked to. Even in general body meetings, since the president always spoke to this limited audience, then they took decisions. One of the first decisions I took was that all general body meetings will be held in Hindi. And ye Angrezi walis bichari, they had to pretend they didn't even understand what I was saying. So the fact that a president was speaking in Hindi, naturally the pass course Bhenjis, the Hindi honors Bhenjis, the Sanskrit types and the science types, the studious types, they started taking a lot more interest in college affairs, in college decision making. And from actually doing a survey to find out what students think of teachers. Are they satisfied with teaching? What kind of changes do they want in their course curriculum? Our union was, I think, the first anywhere in the country to carry such a survey among students. And once I had mobilized the opinion, then obviously in the general body meeting, I won the vote with 97% vote. It was decided that there would be no beauty contest henceforth, that Miranda House is not a finishing school for beauties and cuties. And this title, if at all, must go to the all-round best student. Nobody ever knew who topped the university in physics, who topped the university in Sanskrit. But everybody knew, not just in the college, but anywhere, even if you went to Simla, and there would be a crowd, "Arey kaun Miss Miranda aa rahi hai?" In those days, Miss Miranda Beauty Contest had the same status as the Miss India Beauty Contest has today. And Brinda Karat, by the way, was one of the Miss Mirandas of those days. And many of these feminists, they really accused me of organizing the riffraff. They used to call me leader of the riffraff brigade. Why? Because I talk to ordinary students in the language that ordinary students speak at home and are more comfortable with, and this was really held against me. Another important thing I did was, when I became the president of Miranda House Debating Society, मुझे बड़ा बेवकूफ़ लगता था, for versus against. You know this Oxford Cambridge tradition? And I always felt that if you want to understand any issue, you have to explore the nuances, the shades of grey. The moment you're forced to take a position for versus against, and I was what, all of 18 at that time, you know, that you stop dealing with issues in a manner that will lead to resolution. So मैंने debating society को disband किया, and I instead created a discussion forum, which is you'll take up an issue. You don't have to be polarized and you don't have to take adversarial positions. You will speak about the issue as you understand, and then come to some kind of understanding and conclusion on issues. Another thing I did, you know, our union, which is why it became very celebrated, we fought for workers' rights, especially those who used to have round-the-clock duty, or the mess employees जिनका दिन सुबह 5:30 बजे 5 बजे शुरू होता था, रात के 11 बजे तक, they didn't have proper accommodation. Now these were very new things. But coming back to the beauty contest story, I forgot. The interesting thing is that many of the leading feminists of today were leaders of the Beauty Cutie Brigade.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. And they insisted that this is the glorious tradition of Miranda House, and even some of the teachers who then became later on ultra feminists, tab tak they hadn't realized that maybe in the West also they were getting to be unfashionable.
But who were these?
For example, Urvashi Butalia was someone, you know, Kali for Women Press. Now, of course, in her own mind, she's convinced herself that she is the one who got it abolished. She even makes that claim. But it's so absurd because she led that, and there were, you know, the whole thing became so funny because the majority of students had already voted it out. It's just the English department and a few of these very fancy, airy-fairy ones who insisted that this represents the glorious tradition of Miranda House. And ye riffraff आम जनता कहाँ से आ गई मिरांडा हाउस के पोर्टल्स को, plebeianized, yeah, plebeian. They used to also call me leader of the plebeian riffraff or whatever. And they tried to hold it, I remember. हम जाके धरना दे देते थे, हॉल से निकले उन्होंने, they went to the लॉन्स टू होल्ड इट, हम वहाँ भजन गाते, मंडली बैठ गई वहाँ को नहीं, एक जगह से दूसरी जगह ये क्यूटीज़ एंड ब्यूटीज़ सज सजा के, नाउ दे आर स्वेटिंग बिकॉज धूप में दौड़ रहे हैं इधर उधर. और फाइनली they couldn't find a place in the college where hundreds of us didn't just sit and started singing bhajans. So they went.
You literally sang.
Yes,
okay.
We literally sat and sang bhajans, and we didn't let them. So finally, there's about 40 of them trooped down from Miranda's hostel to Mall Road, where one of them had a big palatial bungalow. So they actually went and held a beauty pageant in that personal bungalow. So the next day, obviously it was all over the newspapers, that Miss Miranda beauty pageant, there was all this fracas over it. And the journalists, when they came and asked me कि उन्होंने वहाँ माल रोड में तो कर लिया, तो मैंने कहा ठीक है, माल रोड में उसको मिस माल रोड कह दो, मिस मिरांडा तो नहीं हुई. दूसरा, अब माल रोड में कोई बंदर का तमाशा भी कर सकता है, तो उसको हम बंदरिया को थोड़े ना मिस मिरांडा कह देंगे. So that was the last. Thereafter, Miranda House is one college which has never gone back to holding a beauty contest. But funnily, all the Bhenji colleges started holding it. You know, that's the irony of history. I thought that this disease was confined to the few upper layers of the hip elite. But वो तो बीमारी अब सारे कन्या महाविद्यालयों में भी पहुंच गई है. तो क्या बोलें?
So, Madhuri, in your student life, you were also associated with SFI, which not many people might know. So, what were your experiences with SFI, and why did you choose to be associated with SFI?
See, there was no SFI when I was president of Miranda House. SFI tried to gain entry precisely as my Miranda House president term got over, and they wanted a foothold. They didn't have a presence. They didn't really know how to. So they used me as almost a running horse. They got me enrolled. I was left oriented in the sense that I'm a justice monger. My DNA passionately demands that we have a just and a fair society, and that we don't allow anybody to starve in this country, that we don't just alleviate poverty, but that this country take on the job of wealth creation seriously. So I was a justice monger, and in those days leftists are the only ones who talk the language of social justice. Neither the Congress student wing nor the BJP, none of these people had any such agenda. So it was earlier the Maoists. They enrolled me through a play that they were staging, Bertolt Brecht, and I was given a tiny role in that. Now, they were all inspired by Maoist ideology, but the Maoists made a joke of themselves, because most of those who tried to indoctrinate me, soon after they did their MA from St. Stephen's College and Hindu College, वो तो IAS IFS में चले गए. तो हमें समझ आ गई ये माओइस्ट ये सिर्फ उबाल है जब तक स्टूडेंट डेज का.
What year?
This early 70s, no. Then SFI recruited me, and I was in the organizing committee, the first organizing committee of Delhi University, and they decided to field me along with the Socialist Party student wing as the first woman candidate for Delhi University Students' Union president. One, because I had, as president of Miranda House, battled the Gunda politics that then prevailed. So one was already a well-known figure in Delhi University, and even in the media it used to cover extensively what was happening, but also because they didn't have any candidates of their own. Now I didn't realize that I was just being used as the Ashwamedh घोड़ा, और उसके बाद तो स्लॉटर होता है ना जब कॉन्क्वेस्ट करके आ जाते हैं. But that experience of being their candidate, the experience of being in SFI for about a year was very suffocating, because whatever I did as President Miranda House, I did on my own initiative. It was always on local issues, student issues, what's good for students. I never felt that students, qua students, are in a position to start battling out national, international issues. Leftist का तो है सारा international पहले शुरू होता है. You know, you have to take a stand on Russia versus China versus US versus imperialism before, but you don't notice whether the toilets in your institution are clean or not. To me, this is the wrong way of going about getting students socially engaged, because things that they don't know about, if you indoctrinate them and you force them to take stand on that, then they are going to become political robots. So I began to rebel, because in our meetings they would try, the party office would send directives, ये mandate है, वो mandate है, and I'd say उनका मतलब क्या है? These ruddy-fuddy people sitting in CPM headquarters don't know what's happening to student lives here, and we are not taking directives like that. So I then walked out of SFI, and with me, I think 2/3 of the founding members that were also left, and that's something that obviously the CPM, not so much the CPM men, but the CPM women have not forgiven me. They were non-existent at that time, by the way. There were no CPM. I mean, Brinda Karat had not been born. She was in London, and she was London से Marxist बन के आई थी.
Given your experience with SFI, so would you encourage students today to be actively involved? Would you encourage students today to be actively involved in student politics? If yes, do you think there are any political organizations which are doing good work in the university, especially DU? Because I think DU elections are held at par with the Lok Sabha elections today by the mainstream media. So would you comment on that?
It's not just DU, but also Delhi University Teachers Union, TUTA, Teachers Association. By the way, at one time when I was teaching in Delhi University, the Congress Party was desperately keen to field me as their candidate against the CPM candidate. But I had seen from close, though they wanted me to be an independent versus, because they didn't have a candidate who could defeat the CPM candidate, and they thought I would be their best bet. They were willing to support me as an independent, but I knew that whether Delhi University Students Union or Delhi University Teachers Union politics, it actually does not deal with the issues that it should be, which is the well-being of the university, improving the quality of education, improving library facilities, improving teaching methods, upgrading your learning skills, making education a pleasurable experience. To me, both as a student and as a teacher, these were primary concerns. Dirty bathrooms in colleges and university buildings would bother me so much that I even organized Safai Brigade with students कि हम bathroom की सफाई करेंगे. उसमें भी politics.
You were the original
You won't believe it. There too, party politics came in. They wouldn't let us clean because they said आप कर्मचारी union strike पे चले जाएगी. I said, we willing to help them just clean the bathrooms. even there, CPM versus Congress versus BJP comes in, and you're not allowed to do anything on merit. You're not judged on merit. So today, both my experience as a student union activist as well as a Delhi University teacher has convinced me that while it is very important for students to start engaging with social issues, to start understanding political issues, but party politics should be kept out. I would ban all parties from taking part in student union elections and teachers elections and backing candidates, because then every college becomes an adda for gang war on every issue, and no issue is judged on merit. So I'm really dead against politicization of this kind that is taking place among teachers and students. And today you can't fire a teacher for absenteeism. It has happened so often. Teacher class nahi lete, teacher paper leak karte hain. No action can be taken against them because the union will go on strike. So I find that appalling.
So I think you mentioned also earlier, you were involved in one of the first fights with the Delhi University on sexual harassment. Was this as your tenure as a professor or as a student?
See, as a student also, we did a lot of, we did take up cases of sexual harassment, and in fact in one case my own brother, who's also at the university, nearly got killed and knifed because he tried protecting a young woman from they call them Eve teasers, but lafangas who were harassing two young women. So all that had already happened. But as a teacher, after Manushi had already started, I got a complaint from, among many other complaints, this in Delhi University, there was a Department of Adult and Continuing Education, and the director of that department, one Dr. Bhatia, had converted that whole department into a personal harem. He would recruit a lot of young, beautiful women on temporary basis. He didn't make anybody permanent, so that he could use them at will. But two women who resisted had come to me. Many left, many got used, many got abused, some even took advantage of it, but these two women had fought it strongly, and they had good backing and evidence. Even the male employees of the department were willing to give testimony. And so Manushi actually led that whole movement for getting this department head fired. The university was actually that first time ever strike on the issue of sexual, not just harassment, actually he was using it as a brothel. He was using it as a harem, that kind of sexual exploitation. And any woman who resisted was tortured, harassed, made to resign, and he was compulsive. And we had a very leftist oriented Vice Chancellor, Dr. Upendra Bakshi. You won't believe it, the manner in which he came to his defense. At a point when the whole department was up in arms, saying enough is enough, and even male employees were saying we can't see this happening anymore. So this campaign, this fight went on for over 1.5 years, but finally he had to be removed.
मधु जी, जब भी हम मधु किश्वर सुनते हैं ना, तो मानसी और मानुषी, हाँ, मानुषी अकस्मात ही हमारे मस्तिष्क में आ जाता है ये नाम, और काफ़ी लोग हैं जो इससे काफ़ी प्रभावित हुए हैं. एंड यू नो, इन दोज डेज people would subscribe to get copies of it, and now got to know that, you know, it was also popular globally, not just in India. So, well, yeah, we get an idea of how it could have, you know, been conceptualized, but what exactly drove you to come out with Manushri per se?
See, it was my experience with left politics that left me very disgruntled, whereby everything is seen through the ideological prism. You don't take into account the real reality, but you have a program, what people should think, what people should do, what the aspiration should be. So when we started Manushi, it was post-emergency period. And I think Manushi was one of the important offshoots of the anti-emergency period. My main aim in starting Manushi was to understand India better, not start like leftists with a program and an agenda for action sitting in Delhi. You're just intellectualizing it based on your theory of what women, men, farmers, this, that, and should feel. But by actually understanding, by close observation, hearing the voices of people in general and women in particular in different parts of India, acknowledge the diversity that is India, the life situation of women in Kerala and in Kashmir, or the contrast between Manipur and Gujarat. All this has to be understood. The life situation to be understood in concrete detail, and trying to understand the diverse aspirations of women and accordingly then respond to them and figure out ways in which we can help them in their battles. Secondly, I always felt that mainstream media thinks of women only when there's an atrocity. Rape hua, gang rape hua, murder hua, and women's issues then just get confined to atrocity mongering. And I've always believed that these atrocities are mere tip of the iceberg. You need to understand the daily life's vulnerabilities. What makes women vulnerable to resist to those atrocities? So Manushi was meant as a platform for information gathering, understanding the diverse life situation of people, especially women in India, especially in rural areas, and not to assume that women just mean women like you and me, sitting in Delhi or Bombay and Pune, that more than 2/3 of our population lives in rural India and their life situations matter, and we need to link our aspirations and our battles with theirs. Basically, that's how it all started. So in that sense, the existing feminist paradigms or their whole way of analyzing, I'd already rejected when we started it, which is the reason why I did not accept to use the word feminist. Many of those who had at that time gathered in support had said, call it a feminist journal or this, that, and the other. In fact, one of the eminent feminists, namely Radha Kumar, she even suggested, she came for 1 or 2 meetings. You know, the mindset, colonial mindset, ताज़े इंग्लैंड से आई थी, तो बोली इसका नाम चुड़ैल रख दो. I said, चुड़ैल? Why चुड़ैल? Another one suggested तीसरी हड्डी, वो भी इंग्लैंड से लौट के आई थी. वो क्यों? क्योंकि in European history, women were burnt as witches on the stake. So I said, यहाँ तो किसी ने बर्न नहीं किया, हमें तो किसी ने चुड़ैल नहीं कहा, because we are learned women. In our history, the Gargis and the Maitreys are still honored and celebrated. तीसरी हड्डी क्यों? क्योंकि वो biblical है, woman was made out of the sperm. इस तरह के उलझुल feminist ideas होते थे. And I really managed to steer clear out of it all. And it was started in order to first understand, instead of pontificate and give sermons to women as to what they should think, what they should aspire to. Which is why a lot of this writing in Manushi is actual investigative journalism of a different kind.
So most of those feminists of then, or even probably today, their definition of feminism comes from the Abrahamic system of things rather than
It's
what the-
copycat. जुकाम वहाँ की फेमिनिस्ट को होता है, छींकें इनको आने लगती हैं, ये हमेशा से था. दूसरा, I think Manushi is perhaps the one and only journal of those days, or perhaps even today, which was crowdfunding. How did we start? I was then a young lecturer. Ruth and I, who were the two main pillars of Manushi, we took out some money from our own pockets, and we had a kitty of about 800, and this was a time when I earned only about 700 rupees. So with 800 rupees, we printed, cyclo-styled the proposal for Manushi, what we wanted to do. And we sent it out to people all over the country. Kisi ne bhi kaha, this so and so might be interested, my cousin there, my chachi bua there, whatever. We just sent it out blindly. And you'll be surprised, a poorly cyclo-styled sheet of paper, we got hundreds and thousands of responses. People saying not only do they want to subscribe in advance, but they said, send us receipt books, we will enroll subscriptions from others. So without knowing people, we printed receipt books again with our own money, and we mailed them all over the country. And people actually sent 100 subscriptions, 50 subscriptions. That's how the first kitty came to be. And these were people we didn't know. The only thing is that I personally responded to every letter that came, even if it was hundreds every month, handwritten, didn't even have a typewriter. And when we started Manushi, we didn't have a typewriter, we didn't have an office, we didn't have a table, we actually had nothing. We used to sit in parks, in dhabas, in the printing press itself, that, you know, very archaic technology, letter press wali, gandi si Paharganj की गलियों में, स्टिंकिंग गलियों में बैठ के प्रेस में निकालते थे. और पहले इशू के लिए पैसा आया, we collected about 11,000. You know, talking about money, I have no sense of calculations. So we collected about 12,000 rupees, which went into publishing the first two issues, English and Hindi. Thuntun Gopal, अब अगला issue कहाँ से आएगा? We just waited till more subscriptions came, because the very first issue of Manushi, I have no idea how it happened. It traveled globally on its own. I didn't send even one free copy to anyone, but every major newspaper of India and many abroad wrote large articles on it. It was received as though with such wonderment and embraced with such affection. Now this also, mind you, displeased my feminist friends. Do you think they were happy? No.
Why would that be?
Why would that? That's the funny. They first accused it of being bourgeois feminist.
Oh.
Okay? अभी bourgeois, whoever read it said, यहाँ तो कोई bourgeoisie की बात ही नहीं है. The first page cover had a peasant woman from Marathwada on the cover in a procession. Now there was no talk of fashion, cosmetics, not even cookery. It was all about women that had not been talked about, and yet they called it bourgeois feminist. So लोगों ने कहा धीरे धीरे कि ये बेवकूफ़ बात कर रहे हैं आप, यहाँ कोई bourgeois बात नहीं है. Then you won't believe it. The next smear campaign was, it was lesbian feminist. I'd never even heard the word lesbian till then. I honestly didn't know what that meant. And why was it called lesbian feminist? Because Ruth and I, who were the two main pillars of it, were inseparable companions. We worked together, we stayed together. At some point we rented an apartment. One room was used as Manushi office, the other was supposed to be our place, staying place, but it became an international guest house, national international guest house, जिसको जो समस्या होती थी आ जाते थे रात को 2 बजे भी. किसी की बीवी भागी है वो भी आ जाते हैं, किसी के माँ बाप से झगड़ा हुआ है because she wants to get married to some, वो भी आ जाते हैं. कोई आदिवासी क्षेत्र में some atrocity has happened, suddenly we'll have people come with boria bistara and come on, solve the problem. Domestic violence cases, all kinds of people
But
would
that's
just
funny
walk in.
because lesbianism is actually one of the pillars of their feminism today.
Today it's become politically fashionable even for CPM women not to oppose it. But you see, the point is that at that time, socialist feminism was, because CPM dominated the discourse, and socialist feminism was the most desirable variety. And socialist feminists looked down upon lesbian feminism or whatever. Now, so this again was a smear campaign that went on till people said, well, we don't see any obsession with sex. Forget lesbianism. We don't even see obsession with sex in it. It's about so many other things. And Manushi never went overboard on the whole issue of sexual liberation, because I had seen the fate of my feminist friends who lived sexually liberated lives. They get fucked up by all kinds of men. And then they are bitter and they are angry. And then, they can't do without men, but they hate them because they can't really, you move from relationship to relationship, you're stealing each other's husbands, you're stealing each other's boyfriends, your friends don't trust you, your married sister will not trust. This is what happens when you do over much of this airy-fairy sexual liberation. So I never, and that I never went for that, but not also, it saved me from a lot of sexual exploitation by male feminists. A lot of male feminists came in droves, okay? And since it was an open house, रह भी जाते थे, आए हैं कहीं बाहर से, बिहार से, यूपी से, and then they would try to paw you. And when I gave a whack on the face, कि ये घर में खाना खिलाने तक तो ठीक है, उसके बाद ये हाथ पांव चलाने की लाइसेंस आपको किसने दिया? And then they would turn around and say, we thought you were a feminist. I said, excuse me, I'm not a Simone de Beauvoir who would allow, so many men to mess up her life, and yet, तो ये मुझे, I much prefer मनुवादीस जो मानते हैं कि स्त्री को देवी की तरह पूजना चाहिए. तो उस तरह पूजने की आदत है तुम्हें तो बात करो. I'm not the kind you can paw. I'm not available. So it actually, because those who make feminism synonymous with sexual liberation without thinking it through as to what the consequences are for women actually end up getting fucked up in their head and in their body both.
Manushi, you mentioned about Manushi starting from the scratch. You worked from footpaths, parks, and even the printing press whenever there was space available for you to sit and start working, which clearly means that you had a financial difficulties. Why did you not go the way other NGOs have gone in terms of getting your funding?
See, right at the inception of Manushi, I had taken two strict vows. Number one, that we would make it self-supporting, autonomous. We would not depend either on government money or on funding agencies. All these foundations, international, global foundations that keep hunting for NGOs to become their foot soldiers. I wanted to make Manushi an independent, autonomous, self-respecting voice. At that time, I wasn't too aware about all the games that these funding agencies play. It was more a case of Atmasamman, self-respect, which is we wanted Manushi to be an instrument for addressing the problems of India, especially the weak and the vulnerable. And I felt that this is our moral responsibility. Why should I go with a begging bowl to Firangis, to Sweden or to US and say, I want to work for the poor, please put some money in this begging bowl of mine. So Atmasamman ki baat thi, very simple. Second, I also took a vow that I would never ever try to earn my living by encashing India's poverty. So Manushi would never be a source of income for me. The money must go from my pocket to Manushi rather than any reverse flow, because and keep my own livelihood apart and free from Manushi. That's why I started Manushi only after I got a teaching job. And I think these were the wisest decisions that happened out of starry-eyed idealism. I wasn't really aware of all the risks that come with becoming a tool of foreign funding agencies, and you'd be surprised. We were wooed very actively from day one. Within 2 or 3 weeks of the issue of the first within 2 or 3 weeks of the first issue of Manushi, which, as I said, traveled globally, even reached Iceland, not just New Zealand, America, Israel, कहाँ पहुँच गया पता नहीं कैसे. The South Asia head of Food Foundation invited me to her house and said that they wanted to fund Manushi, take charge of all our expenses. So I said, and mind you, this is a time when we don't have an office, we don't have a table, we don't have a typewriter, we don't have anything, we don't even know where the next issue is going to come from. No money for that also. And we really lived from issue to issue. I told her, look, we've already have announced it on the contents page of Manushi that it's going to be self-supporting. So I cannot soon after the first issue break my vow, and so sorry, thank you very much, but no thank you. She's amazingly astute. Her next sentence was, I really admire that, Madhu, that you are being so upright about money. How about this? She made a very interesting offer. She says, we'll pay you in advance for 10,000 copies for the next 5 years. All this advance money, and you circulate them, send them to whoever you will. Now, you know, I calculated fast in my mind. In those days we priced the Indian Manushi in India at ₹1 and Bahar ki shayad $1 or $2. But even then it meant a lot of money, 10,000 copies in advance. But again, thank God I was smart enough to say, but it's as good as funding. It's not as if you're saying, I want 500 copies to be sent to 500 libraries in the US. By all means, buy them. But 10,000 copies, chahe kude mein phenko. You know, this is how a lot of NGOs get corrupted. Money without accountability.
Did they set any conditions, or did they ask you to do something?
No, for Food Foundation and all these foundations are usually very smart. They appear so liberal that you get seduced, and in fact you will hear a lot of NGOs, including, let's say, the Center for Science and Environment, say to you openly that we could never have done such good work with Indian money. It's only because we had foreign money that we could be. Now, to me, it's a slap on our own face. It's like spitting on our own face. और मत करो यार, अगर हमारे समाज में ऐसे लोग नहीं हैं इस काम को सपोर्ट करने वाले, तो मत करो ना. कोई खुदा ने ज़बरदस्ती तो नहीं करवाना है काम. और अगर आपके काम की अहमियत है, I felt that if this work has meaning, it will get support, and if it has no meaning for people in this country, then let it die. And having separated my own livelihood from Manushi allowed me to live comfortably, saying जिस दिन support नहीं होगी, बंद हो जाएगी, तो ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, कोई आफत नहीं आएगी, आसमान के सितारे टूट के थोड़ी गिर जाएंगे अगर मानुषी बंद हो गई.
Manushi succeeded really quickly.
Instant hit.
Instantly, it was a hit instantly. So along with the love and affection that you got, not only in India but globally, you know, success has many fathers, and in your case, I think it had many mothers. So you were a victim of intellectual persecution, and I think many people tried to appropriate Manushi and take over Manushi and sideline you. So can you tell us a little something about that?
Oh my God, that story is, I don't know whether to laugh at it or cry. in our naivety, thinking that since a lot of people are going to come in and give voluntary labor, like in a gurdwara, you know, सेवा करने आते हैं, ऐसे बहुत से लोग आते थे, तो हमने नाम कभी नहीं लिखा था उसमें मधुकेश्वर एडिटर. Okay, we called it naively at first a collective something. Now, because my name was not in anybody's face nor anybody else's, all these feminists who did their best to kill it, who spread all these horrible rumors that we, you know, not only that we were lesbian feminists, but that we teach women to rape each other. I mean, इतनी वाहियात बातें फैलाती थी, इतना गंद फैलाती थी. And interestingly, it's their own boyfriends and husbands who would defend us, saying, but we don't see it anti-men. That's another thing. Manush is anti-men. That's one spectrum. The other was, why are you publishing men? There were a lot who started boycotting it because we happily and willingly published good writing by men. तो ये जो तंग करते थे यही, it became, I think, the most important income generating project for many of these feminists in two ways. One, plagiarizing from it, cut paste Manushi articles and give a little twist here or there. There were some who did it that way, and others who didn't even change comma and full stop, and even tried to not just tried to, won journalism awards by cutting pasting Manushi articles. So that's one. Our work would be stolen, plagiarized on a very large scale without acknowledgement. ठीक है, क्या करेंगे? The other kind were who would claim to be Manushi founders and collect money, especially when abroad, because there you collect in dollars. So they would go abroad, claim to be Manushi founders, founding editors, and collect subscriptions and never give us that money. With some of them, I actually pleaded, saying, all right, keep the money, but at least give us the names so that we can send them copies. You know, otherwise you are smearing our reputation. They wouldn't do that. Many would get invited to international conferences, naming themselves as Manushi editors. In fact, some of them, to one of them I even wrote a letter saying, you claiming to be the Manushi founding mother is like Kans proudly claiming to be the mama of baby Krishna. You did all you could to kill it, और इतने तुम उसको अभी भी flaunt कर रही हो. I remember one instance in particular when again Urvashi Butalia, the leader of the Beauty Brigade, go to London and I see posters with founding editor Manushi, Urvashi Butalia speaking, and she had collected a lot of money, so much so that we had to actually name her and say Urvashi has done this, and some other names also we gave, and please in future do not give money to anyone who doesn't carry an authorized letter of representation with my signatures in it. I had to actually name and shame some of them. But others, for example, I was sitting in Germany at one time with the editor of feminist journal Courage there, and they had invited me for lectures in Berlin, and Sibila gets a phone call from Shiba Chachi saying, I am the founding editor of Manushi, and will you please invite me for a lecture? I'm in London, where I've again lectured on behalf of Manushi, and will you invite me to Berlin? And she says, but the editor is sitting here with me. And can you imagine, Shiva Chachi had the guts to tell her, oh, you know, we all started Manushi, but Madhu stole it from us. और ये लिखने भी लगी हैं, मतलब they started actually believing it, because once it became a success and their defamation didn't succeed in killing it, then they had to pretend that it's they who did it and I stole it from them. So I went through all that tamasha. But more than on claiming these things, you see, it's also how they responded to issues. For example, Manushi organized the first ever demonstration against wife murder in Delhi. In Model Town there was a case, and some of these feminists also joined. Abhi, the moment this happened, a lot of families began to come to us to seek help before their daughters were dead. So we started also legal aid case. Now, in the initial years, it seemed that many of these murders were related to dowry. So I felt that if dowry is, and that was again naive enthusiasm and idealism, which told me that if dowry is really so bad, we must set an example by boycotting dowry marriages. So I gave a call for boycott of dowry marriages, saying I personally vow I will not attend any marriage where dowry is given, even if it be of my close relatives. Other than the 7-8 of us who were actually close group of Manushi, none of these feminists joined. And the funniest part was that in the morning they are demonstrating outside other people's houses saying दहेज मत लो, दहेज मत दो, और शाम को बढ़िया कांजीवरम की साड़ी पहन के डाउरी वेडिंग में जा रही हैं. So I would say to them that the least you owe your conscience is कि बायकॉट करिए, आप अपने परिवार में क्यों नहीं बायकॉट करते. They made fun of me at that time, though they took on the issue. First, of course, it was, oh, dowry is a bourgeois women's issues. Then what happened is, because I was doing a lot of legal aid work, I realized that it was not so much dowry, because there are a lot of murders happening where dowry was not an issue. That it was the lack of an alternative place, shelter, because parental home becomes bhaiyon ka ghar, bhabhiyon ka ghar, which is why women were getting compelled to take violence. And at the same time, I had traveled at the invitation of certain tribal groups in Bihar, where I found that a lot of witch killings were happening because of denial of land rights to women, or a widow left with only daughters, no sons. So all this legal aid work that I was doing, as well as my exposure to the very lethal consequences for women, especially in tribal areas or in farming communities, the denial of land rights, even though they actually are the primary workers on land, convinced me that dowry is not the issue. That women take abuse mainly because they have nowhere to go. Their parents can't take them. Their parental home becomes bhabhiyon ka ghar, bhaiyon ka ghar. So I then wrote an article saying, rethinking dowry boycott. The issue is not dowry ban. The issue is denial of inheritance rights in parental family. और ये कैंपेन होना चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर आपने डाउरी भी नहीं दी और इनहेरिटेंस राइट्स नहीं, तो औरत तो ठुन गोपाल, उसको क्या मिला, उसके भाइयों को डबल शेयर मिल गया. So again I was called all kinds of names, that I had turned pro. That time Sanghi was not the word, but right wing, and that I was justifying the bad traditions of India, the Hindu traditions of India, whatever nonsense.
Madhuji, can you share with us the major milestones of the Manushi journey? What are the different issues that you dealt with, and the history of how you dealt with these issues?
That PIL, challenging the denial of land rights to women, that I took, started a countrywide debate and led to a lot more thinking. I did a lot more research on the subject. And 2005, when finally the Hindu Succession Act is amended to give women equal inheritance rights, they all pretended they did it. I just vanished from the scene. It was all their bright ideas. There's so many mothers to that legislation also. But I got the abuse when I started it all. Thereafter, even when I worked with this farmers organization, saying it's not enough that laws be changed. I worked with Shetkari Sangatna, voluntary transfer of land rights in the name of the wife. And Sharad Joshi, who was the leader, had invited me to work with the farmers movement, which I did for about 8-10 years, and my main contribution was to convince them about not waiting for laws change, but creating an environment, a conducive environment where society embraces the idea. And hundreds of villages celebrated this whole Lakshmi Mukti campaign, where voluntarily hundreds of families in each village would put patta in the name of the, or transfer piece of the land in the name of the wife. वहाँ भी ये तो kulak farmers, this is to stymie land reforms and to allow kulak farmers to hold more land. Again, you know, only abuse came. There's not a good thing that they will support, but 5-7 years down the line, when they find that especially Western feminists are finding it sensible, then they adopt it, then they apply for grants, and then they own up the issue, give it a new twist and make it their own. This has been the history. I bring up an issue, whether it's publication of Manushi or the issue of domestic violence. I remember Brinda Karat calling domestic violence also a bourgeois women's issue, and actually condemning it.
So, Madhu, what was a normal women's issue according to them? Because everything that you were doing.
So, if you are a socialist feminist, then you work only for working class women, for wages, organize them in trade unions. Any other form of activity, self-activity of women is to be despised. Okay. Anyway, so all this went on. Another major landmark, I think, was the 1984 riots, when seeing the violence, politically engineered violence on the streets, starting with my own neighborhood, where we Manushi volunteers actually stood in front of mobs to say, you cannot enter our neighborhoods. This was in Lajpat Nagar. You know, when they tried to burn the local Gurdwara. I mean, Gurdwara we couldn't save, but at least hamare neighborhood mein we were very active in organizing defense and not making sure that nobody entered, and there were a lot of Sikh families living there. And then I worked in relief camps, wrote a whole report. I think that was first time that a riot report, bottom up, through the eyes of women, how women experienced that riot, and their own experiences of being raped while their husbands were being burnt, how Congress goons actually hired mobs in order to commit the massacre. And it's very interesting. I was the first one to call it a massacre. The mass media at that time were calling it Hindu-Sikh riot. I said it's not a riot, because my own exposure, citywide exposure, working with riot victims, in relief camps as well as in neighborhood, showed not a single Hindu was murdered. All the 3,000 odd in Delhi who were murdered were Sikhs. So how do you call it a riot? And so that, and again, you see, that was much before minority rights issues and riot studies had become fashionable, and funding came for it. One did this all with one's own money. All this research, whether in tribal areas or this kind of investigations, I did similarly investigated Bombay riots, Meerut riots, Malyana riots, several such. I was out there even during curfew times doing first-hand investigations, because one realized you can't trust media reports on these issues. Now, another major, I mean, I'll skip several years. You know, when I worked also for the Save Ganga campaign, I was part of it, got some important dams, you know, the declaration of eco-sensitive zone in the Himalayas, scrapping off some harmful dams, all this work one was part of. That time Manushi, that's the one work Manushi did in collaboration with several others. So I'm not making too much of it, but I played a very active role in that campaign as well. Now, street vendors and cycle rickshaw pullers. This came partly as a result of spontaneous response to seeing street vendors being beaten up, their vending carts being taken away, their goods being destroyed on regular basis in my own neighborhood. And similarly, cycle rickshaws being confiscated, मारते थे, पीटते थे, cycle rickshaw उठा के ले, मेरे आँख के सामने कई बार ये होते देखा. So I made a documentary film, and at that time, it's very interesting that all these feminists were organized, all the foreign funded NGOs were organized under the World Social Forum and the Indian Social Forum. It was a big conglomeration of global NGOs, foreign funded NGOs, who were opposing liberalization and globalization. I took them on saying, you guys who live off foreign money, you would collapse and disappear into thin air, your NGOs, if you didn't get foreign funding. Why the hell are you opposing coming of investments into India? Investments are so much better than beggary money, than aid money. And your NGOs working, following the agenda set in the West. And that anti-globalization campaign that these people, the Medha Patkars and the Vandana Shivas and all of the feminists, including my CSDS, were leading it. I really felt that it was truly anti-India, because India stood to benefit. My work with the farmers movement had also told me that restrictions on our farmers exporting their produce, that's the means through which farm prices are kept artificially low here. Dumping of foreign farm produce to bring down prices, but not letting our farmers export. All this I had understood, and in some ways then I connected the plight of cycle rickshaw pullers and street vendors. I worked in order to show that liberalization, which they were all opposing, is actually not just pro-rich, pro-corporate. That the poor need liberalization, freedom from license, quota, raid, Raj, even more urgently than the rich. Because the corporates still survive. The Ambanis and the Tatas and the Birlas know how to wheeler dealer, and they manage to survive no matter how severe the license, quota, raid, Raj. But for street vendors who are treated as illegal, or rickshaw pullers who are treated as virtual criminals because the municipality won't give them licenses, and on the one hand you say you can't ply without license, but you won't give them license, and then you use that insecure status to confiscate their goods, they confiscate their vehicles and treat them as virtual criminals. So I documented all this in a film which was telecast over Doordarshan, and among several other documentaries I had made, and this led to thousands of vendors, street vendors and rickshaw owners and pullers coming to Manushi doorstep and saying, now that you have explained our plight, nobody bothered about it, we've been treated like vermin who ought to be exterminated from the city, even though people use our services, but they still don't want to see us. So they sought Manushi's help. And again, I felt it was not moral of me to say, "Maine to film banani thi bana di, and now you fight your own battle." So I started organizing public hearings of street vendors, of cycle rickshaw pullers, and interestingly, always did it in air-conditioned halls, in India International Center, in FICCI Auditorium, and there, you know, बिचारे फटे हाल में गरीब India International Center में rickshaw puller आ रहे हैं. You can imagine the kind of shock it must have caused.
For both sides.
Sorry?
For both the sides, you know, like the rickshaw
Yes,
pullers and those.
that's right, that's right. And miraculously, Prime Minister Vajpayee read about these reports of these public hearings, because he used to read Manushi regularly, and he announced on his own initiative while we were doing all these battles on the streets trying to protect them, document their plight, he announced a very historic new liberal policy for street vendors and cycle rickshaw pullers, saying it in so many words that the points being raised by Manushi, that we need a bottom-up agenda of economic reforms, that these most vulnerable sections of our society also need freedom from the license quota raid Raj. This is valid, and the number of vendors in any city or rickshaws in any city ought to depend on law of market supply and demand, not arbitrary quotas. So this again, was a huge step forward. But implementation became a big challenge, which meant PILs in court asking for implementation. But the prejudice was so strong, say against street vendors, that I would hear police commissioners say, ये कीड़े मकोड़े हैं, मधु जी आप बिना कीड़े मकोड़ों के केस लेके आ जाती हैं और इनको तो exterminate करना है. Do you want India to remain third world, dirty, filthy? And I would say, but they are vital part of the urban economy. They're generating self-employment with their own hard work, asking you for nothing. You don't have jobs to give them. The least you can give them is freedom to earn their livelihood through hard work. But the prejudice was so strong that I decided, in the case of street vendors, there happened to be a good municipal commissioner at that time, Rakesh Mehta, though he had his prejudices to start with. But when I showed him the film, explained him what was happening on the streets, he accepted my request that Manushi be allowed to showcase by example how street vendors can become a dignified and even aesthetic part of the urban landscape only if you organize vendor markets nicely, as for example in Bangkok, or in Singapore. Everybody runs to flea markets in Europe. Everybody runs. These are big tourist attractions. And so he took permission from the Supreme Court. We were given 2 pilot projects. We executed them at great risk because they also, you see, once their status gets legalized, then the hafta collecting mafia, which includes the member of parliament, the MLA, the corporator, the police and the local gundas, all together. उसमें BJP, Congress, left सब इकट्ठे होते हैं. So it took us about 2 years to transform one of the dirtiest, filthiest markets into what became world class, in the sense that even the UN Commission for Legal Empowerment of the Poor actually on its own came, sent somebody to see it, made a documentary saying this is an international role model, don't treat them as criminals. But what happens is that because it became a success, the area got beautified. We created park plazas for recreational spaces for the poor people working in the area, a toilet block, neat footpaths, drainage, nice stalls, made the area colorful. So the value of the stalls obviously went up. So all the gundas, the MPs and the MLAs and the police wanted, hame stall kitne doge, hame stall kitne doge. To our men you have to give. And it became the first bribe-free, first garbage-free zone of, I think, India, I would say, because vendors took charge of cleaning the area. We had a Safai brigade. That's how Jhadu Devi, Manushi Swachhnarayani ka avatar bhi hua, to communicate that cleaning your environment is a sacred duty. You can't mess up the place from where you're earning your livelihood. So all that led to criminal mafias getting so upset, and they didn't want the message to spread. For me, 3 times it was a real narrow hit and run. It was a hairbreadth escape. One time they tried to run me over with a mini truck, and somebody just pulled me nick of time. Another time, big boulders were thrown at my car, meant at my head, to hit me at my head. But somebody somehow managed to again pull me. It hit my car. But the worst one was on 31st December 2007, when they mobbed me, tried to snatch my camera, these gundas. So on that day, they not only surrounded me and started beating me, and also Shishpal, a Manushi worker, but tried to break open my car door to shove us in and set it on fire. By sheer luck, the car door didn't open. But I injured my arm, it was in plaster, 3 months, there were bruises and all over my body, and I nearly got killed. But interestingly, for the very same day, while the police come to rescue me and take me to Thana, all injured and all bruised, but they allowed these very gundas, same gundas, to register an attempt to murder case against me, that I tried to murder one of the women of their households, and therefore I deserve to be in jail. They had so many counter cases against not just me but other Manushi workers also. So there were dozens and dozens of court cases, beatings, violence. We would build the new footpaths, they would destroy them. I didn't mar pitai. So about 4-5 saal to.
This is when the publication, you had to stop the publication.
In 2007, therefore, or was it in 2008, it just became impossible because our lives were endangered. It was not just my life. All the vendors I was working with, they had cases against them. Their shops were being looted. They were being threatened. Their shops were being forcibly taken over illegally. And interestingly, the Lieutenant Governor had ordered the police that CCTV cameras should be put in this market because their life is in danger. The municipal commissioner wrote numerous letters to the police. The deputy commissioner wrote saying, please defend them, their lives are in danger. But you know, the political influence and the police, of course, lost their hafta because the message that vendors can survive without police and gunda patronage is something they didn't want to spread. The fact that vendor markets can be clean, neat and dignified was too dangerous a message, because see, it's only when these markets are dirty and filthy that the middle class and the upper middle class are happy to see clearance operations. Hatao inko, ye gande log, ye disorder phelate hain.
Some work.
Exactly. But the elite classes don't realize that this is deliberate chaos created by municipality in order to facilitate extortion. In order, ये डर है क्लियरेंस ऑपरेशन का तो हफ्ता मिलेगा, जब हटाओगे फिर डबल हफ्ता मिलेगा.
So,
But
after this entire interview, I am forced to ask you that you've done such a massive body of work, which I don't think even we've covered even 40-50%, 60% of it in this interview. And so many untoward incidents have happened to you, including pressure and murderous attacks and all of that. And we see so many activists and journalists who take one incident or a perceived threat or perceived abuse or trolling or whatever it is, and make such a hue and cry about it and use it as a means to perhaps come into public limelight perception. But I, as a reader, have never really seen you do that. I have never seen you go around telling people कि हाय तौबा मेरे ऊपर ये हुआ, ये अटैक्स हुए, ये दिक्कतें सही, मैंने इतना काम किया. तो आपको कभी ऐसा नहीं लगा कि शायद आपको लोगों से कम्युनिकेट करना चाहिए कि आपके साथ क्या क्या हुआ है in the process of working so much?
see, Manushi readers knew about it, so that was the only platform available. Firstly, I don't like to play victim, so hate the idea that I, with my broken arm, go before TV anchors or TV reporters and say, please see how badly injured I am and please cover and get me some sympathy. I think the moment you do that, you become the issue. The issue was street vendors, not my safety. I became unsafe only because street vendors are so unsafe. And if I took all the attention and then I started playing martyr, then I would become the issue. This was another vow I took, that I will not ever make myself the cause that people have to support. It better be people on whose behalf I'm fighting. And secondly, if I was doing all this work with, say, Ford Foundation help, then I would already be covered. They would ensure. See, these NGOs छोटी सी छींक भी मारते हैं, it becomes global news. Why? Because the funding agencies have to justify the huge monies they are giving them.
In fact, आपने एक article भी लिखा है
जी,
on the same line.
हाँ बिल्कुल, कि उनको justify करना है, तो हर छींक, हर batting of the eyelid has to be projected. And certainly if such an attack took place, so books galore would have been written and stories of martyrdom created
अभी तो
around.
intolerance हो जाता फिर पूरे देश में अगर आज के दिन ऐसा कुछ होता, और स्पेशली अगर आप लेफ्ट लीनिंग होती.
You get support, either you're part of a political party. Let's say if I joined the CPM, tab kharoch aati, then certainly I would have been. But many of the CPM activists are also on the Ford Foundation roll. ये बड़ा अनोखा है that these funding agencies from imperialist bourgeois countries, who they keep abusing all the time, and they oppose globalization and they oppose foreign investment. They only support leftists who oppose foreign investment. It's a curious game. Now, they take care of it. I would have gotten 3 max essays by now. I would have gotten God knows how many.
Do you regret any of it?
Not
Do you
at
regret
all.
Not getting funding, not being associated
No.
with NGOs and
I am grateful to whichever power governs my life. That I had the sense and the naive idealism that made me say no, no, no. Even though I didn't know kahan se paisa aayega, but I refused to be on their payroll because I have seen how the narrative, the political narrative, has been distorted beyond shape and acquired anti-India thrust by almost all those who are on the payroll of these foreign funding agencies. It's not a coincidence that the Intolerance Brigade is linked to all these foreign foundations. It's not a coincidence that it's people who come within the area of influence and depend on foreign funding agencies to do their academia or to their research or activism. They're all singing the same songs.
how do you think you can break that cycle in today's day and age? Because it has become a vicious cycle. It has become a group of people who are interlinked and funded maybe by the same people and things like that. So how do you break out of it for the greater good?
I think we firstly becoming aware. I mean, now at least people are becoming aware of the negative role of these funding agencies. I started opposing their presence 30 years ago. Nobody heard me at that time. Though a lot of people respected me for not taking their money or not taking even government money, but very few were willing to follow my path. It's just too hard. I think we have to create an ecosystem. In fact, I suggested, we petitioned the Prime Minister that you ban foreign funding of NGOs. It's today not just a matter of Atma-Samman and self-respect. It's also national security.
The current government?
Yes, the current Prime Minister. Several of us signed a petition, which I had initiated, saying in one stroke, say India is no more a begging bowl country. and we will make sure that the do-gooders of India can be supported by creating a fund monitored by an autonomous agency, the corporate social responsibility fund, even a fraction of it if it goes into that, and some transparent process for giving money with accountability to those who really want to do good work. This society must support. But more importantly, why is it that the Bill Gates of the world have to worry about the malnutrition of Indian children? Why is it that our own corporates are not willing to support such work? And the corporate social responsibility funds are being actually, there's a lot of drama around them, but very little of it is actually coming to support good work being done in India. And I think it's very important that we create an ecosystem, and Manushi has survived all these years in the hope that कभी तो शर्म आएगी हम लोगों को, और कब तक है कि हमारे देश के गरीबी को डिस्प्ले करके लोग अयाशी करते रहेंगे, जेट सेटिंग करते रहेंगे. मुझे लगता है कि आप डकैत बन जाओ यार, चोरी कर लो, पॉकेट मारी कर लो, पर अपने देश का दुख दर्द दिखा के अपने जेब में पैसे डालना, अयाशी करना, 5 स्टार लिविंग करना, जेट सेटिंग करना, इससे बड़ा तो कोई पाप हो नहीं सकता है.
Madhuri, Manushi has now survived for 35 plus years in various two forms. What are your plans moving forward? You've recently retired from CSDS, and where do you see Manushi going from here? Do you have any plans to share your knowledge and your research methods with the upcoming generations? Can you explain?
See, I do think that the experience that I have gathered and the tradition of self-respecting, self-supporting activism that Manushi has stood for, this message needs to spread. And I would also like to be able to, I mean, thus far countless volunteers came, learned, but we didn't have the funds to give them stable jobs. So I would like to now set up a Center for Law, Governance and Society with the threefold purpose of training human rights activists. How do you do non-partisan activism? Because human rights activism in India has come to be dominated by foreign funded agencies who are playing very partisan politics, and much of it is now turned very anti-India politics. So, or you're acting at the behest of this or that political party. I would like to be able to train such activists, give them the skills of judging the worth of their work. How do you ensure you remain non-partisan? Secondly, research. It will be essentially a research center, and to be able to commission studies. One of the first projects that I would like to do if I succeed in setting up this center is to do an honest review of human rights activism in India from 1975 onwards, the post-emergency activism, which is when all the foreign funding agencies come. How they change the discourse, how a new kind of vocabulary comes into being, how a certain thrust, which is today the kind of partisanness whereby on Kashmir, for example, no study, no report, no investigative journalism done on the exodus and the ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits, but so much heart-bleeding reports done in favor of secessionists, in favor of those who are accused of heinous crimes, terrorist crimes.
Sort of
Yes, that's right. And yet our hearts must bleed for them. But Kashmiri Pandits are to be blamed for their own predicament. Now this kind of imbalance, I can point to at least 50-60 major instances where you see this hideous distortion of issues and misplaced sympathies for wrongdoers while actually ignoring the victims.
So for this center, have you...
And also PIL,
Yeah.
you know, again, the left and the foreign funded NGOs have a total monopoly over defining public interest litigation, public interest issues.
So you're basically
So-
saying that you're moving forward, your plan is to have a public participatory center which is not receiving necessarily fund, which is not set by the government. Would this have a physical place? Do you have any physical place for this center? What are the plans for
See,
that?
we were able to get from DDA a small piece of land several years ago, institutional land, at affordable prices, and we started building on it recently because this structure, it's a 4-story structure, will be able to house the future activities of Manushi and also give it an institutional basis, not just voluntary work, not just unpaid labor of love, which for me it will always remain that. I stick by my vow that I'm not going to earn money by working for my society. It's my rin to my society that I'm repaying. So basically reclaiming the human rights space, which has been all come to be dominated by foreign funded NGOs with very sinister agendas. Reclaiming women's rights activism, because the kind of laws and policies that have come to be enacted in India in the last 30 years, again under influence of foreign funded feminist NGOs, are actually aimed at tearing asunder social fabric and the family as an institution. I do think minority rights activism, human rights activism, women's rights activism, and policy reform activism, all these need to be reclaimed by the society. No such other society in the world has handed over the job. You know, we've outsourced thinking, planning, legislation to outside powers which are not necessarily well-wishers of India, and no self-respecting society should do that. I mean, it's time we took charge of the problems that confront India today and took responsibility for solving them with our own resources.
धन्यवाद मधु जी। इनके साथ पूरी बात करके ये तो ज़रूर पता चला कि ना ये किटी पार्टी में विश्वास करती है ना पिटी पार्टी में। ये विश्वास करती है इनेबलमेंट, एम्पावरमेंट और इमेंसिपेशन में, और हमें पता है कि इसके लिए मानुषी एक बहुत बड़ा साधन है। हमारी ओर से योगिनी, नूपुर और मेरी ओर से आपको खूब खूब शुभकामनाएं कि मानुषी और आगे बढ़े और तरक्की करे और हम सब में इंडिक क्वेश्चन बढ़ाता रहे। नमस्कार।